Good afternoon, everybody. This is David Valenzuela with I Wish Podcast. Here today, we're going to talk to Jessica Lewan. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Lewan.
Lewan. Okay, see,
Lewan.
Jessica Lewan.
Yep.
With Blink Wax in Casper, Wyoming. I'm super excited, Jessica, to have you here. This is super, super exciting. So just side note.
Actually, I'm going to correct
Go
you
ahead.
really quick. It's the Body Bar 307. My LLC, I used to be Blink and Wax, but I am the Body
Okay.
Bar 307 as of this year.
Okay, so you know what? I just literally went and looked at it because I was like, wait a minute, I think the email says Body Bar, but no, your email says Blink Wax.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? It's okay. We transition, we move on, we keep it moving, all that fun stuff. So
Perfect.
I have so many exciting things to talk to you about because I was scrolling through social media, I think Thursday or Friday last week, and I was like, wait a minute, Jessica wrote a book or a journal, and I'm gonna have you talk all about that. But before we get into it, talk to me about how you got into aesthetics, how long you've been practicing, like what's your journey getting into aesthetics? Like what was the beginning?
So the beginning actually was 18 and a half years ago.
Wow.
So I've been an esthetician for 18 years. So I guess the journey started like 20 years ago. I moved to LA and I was going to become a makeup artist. And I went to the Westmore Academy of Cosmetic Arts and got my makeup artist certificate.
This is
Lived in LA for a couple years and hated the traffic.
As does everybody I know.
And I'm from Wyoming, so I double hated it.
Well, yeah, so Wyoming, interesting statistics about Wyoming. You guys have the most square miles per capita, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you would
I
be
drive
like
4 hours and I'm halfway across the state. When you're in LA, you drive 4 hours and you're like down the block.
Right. You're on the 405 and you're not moving anywhere.
Correct.
So, all right. So you started as a makeup artist and you're getting educated in LA. So where did the transition to aesthetics happen?
So when I moved home, I was like, I can't do LA anymore. I wasn't making any money and you had to work so many years to be able to get into the union and I just couldn't afford it. So I moved back and I was actually getting my hair done and my stylist was like, hey, I'm going to open a spa. Would you come work for me? And I said, yeah, I said, I'd have to get licensed in something because you can't do makeup even in a spa without being licensed. I'm like, well, skincare goes good with that. Makes sense.
Yes.
So I moved home in September, the end of September of 2004, January 2nd, I believe I started at school. And by May I was graduated and got my license and started working for her. I worked for her for a little less than, maybe a little over a year, and it just wasn't working out. I didn't love working for someone. And then so I left and I just thought, I could do waxing because that's easy and inexpensive. And I rented a little room from a friend of mine for like $75 a month and had my wax pot and would see people in between. I waited tables and I would just see people and slowly built my clientele from there.
So this story right here is, I feel like we have to shout it from the rooftop because what I see right now, I'm having conversations with new estheticians and they're graduating from school and they're immediately running to rent a solo something. And I keep saying, you guys, you need to do 100 facials, 100 lashes, 100 wax, whatever it is, 100 makeup applications before you could even start thinking about that aspect. And you might have to have a part-time job before you actually, whether you're working at Ulta or Sephora or something, you just might have to be doing something while you're building your business.
Absolutely.
It's kind of I feel like, Jessica, the school should be sort of preaching that to their students about what needs to happen after they graduate. And they're not learning. There's a school 5 minutes from our office. We go over there and speak often. And I just asked the question last time we were there, what are you doing when you graduate? Who's actually thought about what they're going to do when they graduate? Nobody raised their hand. And I thought, okay, they're nervous because the first time this group is meeting me, they can drop in at the first of every month. So some of them are brand new, some of them are graduating in 2 weeks. And I was like, well, today we're going to talk about acne as an opportunity for when you graduate. But they just kind of looked at me like, oh. And I feel like the first month that you start aesthetic school, you should start thinking, okay, as I'm starting to do facials and waxing and just kind of get an idea for what I like. And then I can start thinking, okay, you know what? Let's start looking at opportunities in where I live. There's girls driving for 3 hours to get here to go to school. I'm like,
Right.
wow, it's
Right.
crazy, but they don't. So you found your path. You're waiting tables. You're being a server in between, and then you're starting to pick up your waxing clientele.
Yes. And here in Wyoming, or in Casper particularly, when I got out of school, that was the only commission place to work, and it happened to be for my friend who was my
Mhm.
stylist. There wasn't another option. Like, it was booth rent. And actually right now, I think myself and maybe one other place here in town, you can go work for them. Otherwise, you have to booth rent.
That, you know what? I just told a story on the last podcast that I did. I was giving a little biography over my tenure with Aveda. So there came a point, and every company has to make a decision. And California, just like Wyoming, it sounds like there's a lot of booth rental happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a lot of employee-based situations. So in 2005, I was in charge of business development for Aveda Services Northwest. And Aveda, based in Blaine, Minnesota, God love our Midwestern everything, they came out with a corporate initiative based off of salon owners complaining about their staff leaving and going to rent stations, that we were no longer going to open any business that had independent contractors in it. So
Well,
here I am. This is my entire job, Jessica. Like, literally, that's what I'm supposed to do every day, all day, is go and look for new business that fits the Aveda model. So I called my then boss and I said, "What do you want me to do?" And he literally, I won't say his name because I don't want him to be embarrassed. He said, "David, I don't know." And I was like, all right, it's time for me to
yeah,
go. And that's literally when I put the wheels in motion to start the transition to Dermalogica, was that. So
right.
options being limited, obviously, but now in 2023, moving into 2024, the opportunity. So if you're going to go rent a station somewhere, having $75 rent, I mean, come on, that's like
Yeah. No, it was really
unheard of.
crazy. It was a gal that was doing hair, and she got a place from her friend, and it was just a one little hair place in a little room that had a curtain. So we really had to make sure that she wasn't doing hair when I was doing waxing. And so I would just she goes, "You're only going to be there a couple hours a week, just $75. It's fine, whatever." So I did that for about a year. And then I thought, you know what? I need to do more. So I was going to go back and get my hair license. So I moved
Yeah.
to Cheyenne for a year, did about a month of hair school, and realized I'm really terrible at nails and I really hate doing hair. And so I had to live there for a year because I had a lease.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved back and pretty much immediately got pregnant. And so then I was working at a bar, kind of rebuilding my clientele here. I was pregnant. The guy is not in the picture. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I need another job. So I went and applied for a real job, at the gas company as a receptionist. So I was making $15 an hour there with insurance. So I thought that was important. And I was waxing at lunch and after work, and then I was working at the bar 4 to 5 nights a week. And I was finishing 2 degrees. So I was like, let's
Oh,
do all this before the baby comes. I better figure it all out. So I did it
wow. Wow.
all. And
Sometimes when you have a
yep,
deadline, like, I mean, a baby, obviously a child coming into the
yes.
situation, you're
It
like,
was a
I don't know what
deadline.
kind of time I'm going
Yep. I was like, she's going to be born in June. I got to get this 1 degree out of the way. I have a year left after she's born to finish the other one. And but then I started realizing, so she was born in June. By the end of the year, I realized I was making more money waxing at lunch than I was all day at my job. And my boss
to.
at the time, wonderful man, had daughters, really was very caring towards the women in the office. But he kind of slipped because I could see his face when he said this. He said, "Yeah, your position was created to be a supplemental position." And I looked at him and I was like,
You're like, mm.
yep. Well, and so I put in my notice at the end of December of 2010, and January of 2011, I opened Blink and Wax, and I just went all in on my business. I was like, I need 4 clients a day and I can make this work. And from 4 clients now, if I have 4 clients a day, I'm like, oh, I don't have 35 clients. What am I doing with my life?
I love it. So this is okay. So you touch on a couple really amazing things. One, seeing the money that you can make, obviously, and going, I work a real job and it takes me
Right.
the entire day to make what I'm making at lunch. So there's an
Right.
epiphany there. Also, I'm going to go to school to do hair and nails and going, I hate both of these things. Why?
So bad. And I was so bad at both of them.
Well, and you know what? You're not going to be good at something that you're
Right.
not passionate about. Like I'm constantly preaching all the time. Like you guys, you got to follow your passion. And if you don't love acne or you don't love extractions, that acne's not your jam, that's okay. But until you start getting a little bit of experience, which is why I want the new girls, the up and coming, to be like, do this, do 100 facials, and see if that's your jam. If you love it, if you're
Right.
like into it, then figure it out. If you're like Maria told a story in a couple of webinars ago about she took this lash course and she's like, all right, I'm going to do lashes and I'm going to convert everybody and I'm going to bring them into skincare. And she thought she did this amazing job with lashes. And then she posted it in the group. They had to turn off the comments because it was nothing but hate and you did a terrible job and those look awful. And she's like, I didn't even like doing lashes. And I was like, there's your clue.
Yeah.
If you don't like doing it, don't keep doing it thinking that you're eventually going to like it. You can tell pretty quickly if you're going to jive with something. Like,
Right.
so I love all of that. So give me a typical day right now in your business 18 plus years later. How do you have other people working with you? Like, what's your shop look
So
like now?
2 years ago, in 2020, January of 2020, my baby sister decided to become an esthetician. She lived out in LA doing acting. Her degree's in theater. And so
Nice.
then she was like, yep, not making any money doing this. I think I'm going to go to aesthetic school. So she did that. Well, when she was there, one of her teachers was this amazing microblader. And my sister was like, this is what I want to do is microblading. So she does microblading.
Mm.
So in 2020, before all this stuff happened, January, she flies out. We build an extra room in the space I'm renting so she can come out every 6 weeks. So she'd fly out. She ended up moving to Iowa. So she'd fly out from Iowa every 6 weeks and do microblading and just take clients for 2 days. And so we had built this extra space. And about a year and a half later, she's like, I just can't keep traveling. Well, and that's when I started getting to a point I was so full. I was working 4 days a week. I'd cut it back to 4 from 5 after we reopened after all the COVID stuff. And I was like, you know what? I have a huge wait list. So I had sat on the fence during COVID. I was like, we did a podcast. So we did this. I rented a space with a nail tech, and her and I did a big podcast. And because you got to do something with your time.
You
And
do.
I actually got really, really busy. I had a huge wait list, and I really started reevaluating. Like, I can keep doing what I'm doing, working. I was making pretty good money, but do I just at one point just end? And do I teach people and then my concern about teaching people is it here because of the competition is will they come to me for help or will they just take an hour class, be like, I learned from Jess and then the reputation I've built is now kind of going, ugh. So
Right.
I really sat on the fence. And then my very first esthetician just kind of fell into my lap through another client. And I was like, well, I guess this is what we're doing. So I hired another esthetician, started training her in waxing. And now I have 3 estheticians, a massage therapist, and a reception staff because we rebranded in May. We bought a building last year, had it totally gutted,
Good for
rebranded.
you.
And now we have a big commission and it's all commission based.
Yeah.
So, and I ask them the same question. What do you love doing? Because if you don't love
Yeah.
doing it, then I don't want you to do it.
Yeah. Do you get
Yeah.
something you're passionate about? So I love it. You give me all these things to unpack. I love it. So I love that you did podcasting. I love it.
Mhm.
It's such an interesting thing so I am watching the world change how people are looking for information.
Yeah.
And that everyone obviously for years has been cutting the cable cord and like you really get to curate now what you want to listen to, right? What
Right.
information, we have so many hours in the day. What do I actually want to hear? And is it going to benefit me? Am I going to laugh? Am I going to learn something? Is it going to add value to my day? I see the shift away from traditional news where they have to tell a story so super quickly because they got to cut to commercial and like there's a lot of advertising and it's marketing and depending on the platform, the channel, they need to talk to their audience. And I think that's all changing. I think newscasters are probably like, should I start a podcast? And some of them have because they're like, what are we going to do now? So with this medium, I see an opportunity for people to come and get information. Of course, we're going to talk about Wish. Of course,
Right.
we're in Wish land, but I wanted a space to bring people in that are having success at doing something right and show that to the industry. Like, look, you guys can go in Facebook land and you can all complain to each other that you're not busy for the last 2 weeks, or you can take a best practice and try to implement something in your business. So you said a couple amazing things. One, what I used to teach back in my Aveda days, if we could negotiate a building acquisition, I mean, huge, huge. So I've been around just long enough to see the industry, like people retire out of their businesses. Like I'm like, how's
Mhm.
everybody retiring? What just happened? I started in my early 20s. So I'm like, what the hell? Everyone's retiring. The people that own their businesses, obviously it gave them either they could continue to lease their space to a service-based
Mhm.
business, or they have this really amazing asset. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And then you just have a lot of control, right? So,
Yep.
leasing, I had a location in San Francisco. It was called Treat. She was actually a former rep. She then turned and opened her salon on Fillmore Street in San Francisco. And the guy that owned the building, he was an older gentleman, passed away. The kids came in. They're like, the rent's going up $10,000 a month when the lease
Mm.
expired. And guess what salons can't afford? A $10,000 a
Right.
month rent increase, like in a month's notice. Like, oh, it doesn't work. So you having control over that is amazing. So you're obviously doing waxing, but you have other girls that are focused on doing facials and
Right.
all the fun stuff, right?
Yep.
So your initial introduction to Wish was Beauty Business Summit.
Yes. Yep.
That's where you learned about us and start. Okay, so we've got some girls. So your day to day, you're still primarily doing waxing. They're doing
Mhm.
facials. Okay,
Correct.
because
Well,
that's
and
what you
they
love
all
to
do
do.
waxing too, because my one thing was you have to be rock star waxer because that is what we built our business on. And
Yes,
then
yes,
Megan is really concentrating more on the facials. So she is the other practitioner who is taking the Wish course right now.
nice.
And then because she wants to specialize in acne. So she's taking that one. And I've taken it and I actually do consultations with clients. I just don't do facials. I get them on the
Nice.
skincare and then
Yep.
get their skin start looking good and then they can go see her.
I love it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we get through this. But so I'm fascinated with Wyoming because there's a couple of reasons that there's like, first of all, from a business perspective, it's the lowest taxation of any state in the country. Like,
Yes.
what? Okay. So funny story. 2019, before I launched Wish, I started looking at what was going on in the digital space. Okay.
Right.
So I'm coming from Face Reality, where we had a pretty significant following, not a lot of marketing efforts. Acne is the number one skin condition. So we didn't have to do a whole lot. So cut to me going, all right, I need to start seeing what's happening. Who's getting traction on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok? Like what's going on? I start following James Charles. I'm like, Jeffree Star, these guys were getting 20 million plus views to their videos.
Yeah.
And so have you been in the meat and makeup store?
I have. I actually was there. My daughter and my niece really wanted to go to the grand opening. So they stood in line for 8 hours. I came and waxed some people and then went back in line.
So they actually waited in line for 8 hours to go. Was Jeffrey there that
He,
day?
he was, and we all got to meet him and do pictures. And he stayed for about 10 hours, I think, and did pictures. And then he put on a big
Wow.
concert brought in, I can't even remember who he brought in. Because right by where his store is David Street Station, which is an outdoor concert venue. So
Oh,
he
nice.
paid for that person to come in and did a big concert. So he was only there. 10 hours is a long time of meeting and greeting
That's a
people.
long, yes,
So
yes.
people, of course, complained and they were like, well, we waited all this time. And because I don't think anyone could have anticipated it would have had the line it did.
I mean, it is this is the phenomenon that is social media. And he's been from back in the MySpace days, like he built up this really huge, amazing audience, and then
Mhm.
his brand just blew up and took off out of like nowhere. I don't think he even
Right.
understood like what is about to happen. So I look at the people in our world, both professionally. I was talking about Jane a couple days ago, that have built something from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I take a lot. I'm like, you know what? You got to take a seat, you guys. Like, you can throw shade, you can have all your opinions that you want, but
Right.
you can't argue with the success of what has been created and what that turned into. So, what I'm seeing now is everyone has a different appetite for how much time. How old is your daughter now?
She is 14.
She's 14. Okay, so
Yeah.
your daughter, tell me if I'm wrong, she probably pays more attention to TikTok than anything else in her.
We don't allow TikTok.
Oh, good for you.
Nope, I don't allow TikTok in our
Good
house.
for you.
No YouTube, no TikTok.
Okay, I love it because it's a lot to monitor, like what is actually happening. And I, I mean, kudos to the parents today in 2023 because I'm terrified. I'm
Right.
like, they're not allowed to have a phone until they're like 32 years old. Like, we're not doing this. Like,
That was the plan, but then COVID happened and she's a swimmer and she'd go and they'd lock the doors and not let people use phones, and she wasn't going to get a phone till high school, but
a little, that's what I usually hear from parents is like it.
yeah.
But okay, so no social media. So what
Well,
I
she does
see is,
Snapchat. She's a
okay, Snapchat. I
Snapchatter.
know my family every day. I've got 800 plus streaks with my family. Like one of my sisters is in Puerto Rico right now. The other sister's in Puerto Vallarta. Everybody's on vacation. I'm like, excuse me, what? What is happening? And my sister just went to Cabo like 3 weeks ago. So I'm like, Amy, whatever. Everyone be on vacation. That's fine. We're super busy. We're like pumping it out. It's Black Friday. Like, okay, it's fine. So what I see is the need for information. Like, so you as an esthetician, as a waxer, and the attention span of estheticians wanting to actually touch, read material, actually do the extra mile of like, you have a different attention span. They're trying to watch something and learn a waxing technique on TikTok. I know
Right.
it's there and I know it exists, but to actually learn your craft and become an expert at it, you got to actually pay more attention than a 15-second TikTok.
Yes.
So I'm seeing the drawback to specifically for our industry that there's going to be a draw to long form videos and where someone's trying to learn something. And you know what? I know our attention spans and everything's beeping and we have notifications all the time. But to learn something, you know what? It's going to take a minute. You're going to have to sit down
Yeah.
and focus. So whether that is that this podcast was actually born out of people telling me they're listening to our webinars on their way to work in the car.
Oh.
One esthetician in LA, she's like, oh yeah, I do my facials, David. I listen to your webinars. I'm like, you're not paying attention. What? But hey, whatever. That's where that came from. So tell me now the idea. So I want to hear about where so I'm seeing your marketing on Instagram and you're talking about changes coming, some things that are coming. So give me the scope of what's going on with what you just released. I want you to tell me about what you just released in your own words. I don't know anything about it other than I saw you're like, there might be some printing, something this. Don't worry about
Yes.
it. So tell me about it.
So also, I mean, with what I do, I'm very intimate with my clients. I get to know them really very fast. I mean, I specialize in Brazilian waxing on men and women, so we get to know each other really, really fast.
Really fast. Yeah.
And, a few years ago, it kind of came to me too that I really love coaching. And I do work with people, and people joke all the time when they go see their stylist or whatever, oh, I had therapy. And so, but they're like, oh, I had my coaching session with Jess and my wax, and I'm out the door in 15 minutes. Life is good.
Life
And
is
so I
great.
started actually getting more training on coaching. And I've worked with some really amazing coaches over the last few years. And I hold women's retreats. And so all this stuff has just kind of snowballed and kind of worked from being an esthetician and then an owner and a mother, and just seeing the problems a lot of my clients are going through in their personal lives, and everyone's overwhelmed and scared and sad, and then they want to start something new but they don't know how, and everything you look at, not everything, but I know I buy planners and they're like this thick and there's all this stuff in here, and I'm like, oh my god. And it's the people who go, New Year's Day, I'm going to quit smoking and start eating great and working out, and I'm going to have the best life all within like a day. I'm like, you're not going to do that. And they look at
January
me and
1st.
like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, what's your first step? They're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, okay. So that's when I realized that my gift and my niche for coaching kind of comes out of my 15 minutes with my clients, has to be really concise, simple, and to the point. And so I was actually just talking to my massage therapist, and she goes, I didn't realize you released a journal, because I released a journal last week. She goes, how long have you been working on this? I said, oh, I started it on Saturday because I really wanted to release something, and I put it in for publishing on Sunday and obviously messed something up. But so within 48 hours, I had created a whole journal and part of me sat there and went, oh, is this fancy enough? And I thought, Jess, what you're trying to create is something super simple. When people
Mm-hmm.
are trying to change something, when people are trying to grow into something, you need one little step. You don't need 400 steps. You need one step. So I took the 3 things that have actually made the biggest impact in my life, which are a goal for the month. Pay attention to your money because it's one of the most important
Mm-hmm.
relationships you'll ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And pick something new to do every month. And it doesn't have to be a vacation, though. I think vacations actually make you a better human.
Can't
It
wait.
could be, I've always wanted to learn how to bake a pie. So this month I'm going to learn how to bake a pie. I may really suck at it, but I'm at least going to try it. Or there's a
Mm-hmm.
museum in town I've never been to and I've lived here for 20 years. I'm going to go see that museum. Then by the end of the year, you get to see your budget's probably a lot better because you paid attention to
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
You've now at least got through maybe 12 goals, maybe just 2, and you've just gotten better at them. And then you've done 12 things you've always wanted to do. So I kept it super simple. And so the cover is actually black, and this is where I made the mistake. When I switched the cover to black, I must not have hit the no bleed on the inside, so all the words bled off the edge. But it's super simple, and every month has its budget. I mean, it's one page. They're really simple. It fits in your bag. If I could get that to open. Your goal,
Mm.
your budget, and your adventure. And that has 15 pages and I even say in there, don't journal if you don't want to journal. Take notes. There's no right way to do any of it because I think that's where we get lost, even in our industry. You have to get in and do it like this because someone else's success looked like this.
Right,
Yours isn't going to
right,
look like that. Yours is going to look
right.
like yours looks.
Yes,
So
yes.
yes, I launched a journal because I have big plans for some cool other coaching stuff next year and going to bring some really fun stuff to the table for both industry professionals and people who just need to take a step and don't know how.
And don't know how. So again, see, you give me so many great things to unpack. This is so, I love it. So the idea behind the goal in your head,
Mm-hmm.
right? You obviously, sometimes when you're just starting a business, so as we get a little bit more mature, I like to say, and you've have some life experience, you know that there's some things that are going to take a minute to come to fruition. But
Yes.
it has to start somewhere, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if it is a goal, I was telling on our webinar a couple webinars ago about retailing. I'm like, if you're doing $10 of retail this week and you want to do $10,000 next week, it's probably not going to happen. But
Correct.
if you're doing $10 this week and you want to do $300 next week in retail, okay, that's a goal. And then you
Yes.
can sort of back into like what that is. So I love the idea. There's a couple things that I love about what you just said. I love the idea. There's no wrong answer. Your goals are your goals. You want to
Mm-hmm.
bake a pie and you're like, listen, I've always wanted to figure out how to bake a damn apple pie. All right, put it down and make
Yeah.
it one of your activities that you're going to, I get it. The financial aspect, especially, I feel like women being empowered with money and it
Mm-hmm.
changes the dynamic. I've watched it on both sides growing up, having a very independent mother, breadwinner, and I watched it with my sisters. Like there's a dynamic having a budget and being able to be in charge of your destiny, for lack of a better term. Like you do get to make a lot of decisions
Mm-hmm.
when you have the right budget and you're paying attention to it. But
Right.
also maybe your goal it could be something financial, it could be
Yeah.
something personal, it could be vacation, it could be whatever's important to you that's going to
Mm-hmm.
propel your life forward or make you happier. That's where I feel like the goals need to start. And it doesn't need to be complicated.
No. And
I
that's where
think
everyone
that
starts is so big. They're like, I want to own a big building. I'm like, I started with a wax pot that I carried into a room. And I see
with
people go,
$75.
right. And I see, I'm sure you've seen these posts where people are like, I'm getting ready to start. What should I put on my walls? And should I have neons made? And how much should I spend? I'm like, nothing. Spend nothing.
Nothing,
Is your
nothing.
room clean? Do you have the equipment you need? It doesn't even have to
Yes.
be the best. Is it what you need? And can you open your doors tomorrow and work? Then don't worry about a $7,000 sign. These are $5 from the dollar store.
I think, Stephen designed this, so I don't know how much I'd caught, but it wasn't a lot of money to print it. So
Right.
The other thing that I want our industry to continue to focus on is that your biggest modality is your hands.
Yes.
And I was making a joke, and I know it was probably didn't land as well, but I was making reference to, again, new esthetician graduating from school, asking their dad, can I borrow $30,000 so I can buy a hydrofacial machine? And I'm like, so I've been in sales, right? So I have
Right.
sold brands for a lot of years, and I understand being a good salesperson, but that is the last thing that you need as a brand new esthetician is a $30,000+ hydrofacial machine. You need to, first of all, do you have any clients? You're sitting in your room by yourself complaining that you have no clients. How do I
Right.
market myself? Like, again, our aesthetic schools around, does Wyoming have a master aesthetics program?
No.
What's the hours to graduate in Wyoming with your license?
600.
I think what are we, 640 in California? 600 and something change. So I get it. They're trying to get everybody, what you pay for is to get through your license and pass
Mhm.
state board, and then boom.
Yeah.
And this is where the goal. So what I'm seeing right now for this is, not only is it great for your personal life, but also if you want to bring in some industry professionals and say, let's put 3 goals down for your business this month.
Yes.
And they don't have to be $500,000 building acquisitions. They can be like, you know what? I just want to see 3 new X clients per week, whatever it is. But
Right.
it's got to start with the goal. So
Yeah, my goal was 4 people a day. I said, if I can see 4 people a day, 5 days a week, I said, I'm good. My bills are covered. I'm working. I'm building experience. 4 people a day.
I love it. So this is also being able to take a goal and unpack it and sort of back into it. So knowing, okay, I need 4 clients a day, and that's going to pay my bills. I'm going to be able to take care of myself. Okay, 4 clients, 4 clients, 4 clients. And then you're like, boom, I got 4 clients. And now you're like,
Yep.
okay, now what am I going to do next?
Right. Well, and I will say having a second job was actually what brought in most of my first clients. I waited tables and I talked to
Ooh.
everybody about what I did.
So Maxine told a really great story about when she was working in a spa, that she would come down, it was in a department store, she would come down and go to the makeup counter and introduce herself to clients over and over and over and over again,
Yeah.
to like start bringing new people for her to start building her book. Another thing we're not good at in this industry is teaching people how to actually have the conversation. So some of my new girls that we brought on in the last month and a half or so, they're like, I need some new clients. And I'm like, fine. I preach about 5 to 7 miles. Wyoming, obviously, you probably have some more space, but I look at the
Yes.
5 to 7 mile radius of like, these are where your clients are going to come from and drive from. And like, these are easy access clients. Where's
Right.
the closest yoga studio? Where's your closest independent coffee shop? Go introduce yourself to the owner, invite them in for a treatment, like start networking. And they're terrified just to have the conversation. So now my thing right now is, I'm going to call you on the spot and I'm going to make you role play with me. And I start asking them questions that makes them
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and they laugh and giggle. I'm like, this is what you need to do. So then you can go and set a goal for yourself that
Yes.
this week I'm going to introduce myself to 3 new clients. Whether
Yes.
it's the waitress in the restaurant where you're having lunch, wherever you're going, just your day to day. We're all consumers. Like, introduce yourself. We're not good at our industry for teaching people how to do that.
Right.
And they're
No,
just
we're
sitting
not.
there. So
We
I
actually
see
have
that.
our cards with our little QR code on the back of our business card. And we leave them
Yes.
like in the coffee shop, in the tip jar. We throw them in every time we go out to eat. It goes in with the tip. We
Yes.
leave them everywhere. I had pens made. I leave them in the waitress's book so that they always have the pens they need. And
Yep. I love it. I love it. So the other thing you said is you had the idea and you literally executed this in 48 hours.
yeah, I'm one of those people that I'm like, I want to do this. Let's do it today. And what I've overcome in the last few years is the fear of, like, I'm not really afraid of failing, but like, what if I mess this up and I overthink it and then it takes me a little longer to put it out? But this, I was like, we're just going to put it out because I have to take that first step. Who cares if it sells 2? Who cares if it doesn't
Right.
do
Right.
anything? I can at least say I did it.
Yes.
And for myself, I've now done it.
You did it. So
So,
you had a thought. You're like, I'm going to take action on this. I'm going to produce it. It's people get hung up in the detail. I am actually guilty of this. I get hung
We
up in the
all are.
details of I
Yeah.
want perfection out of the
Mhm.
gate. And anybody, so it's, I link it to, or like it to cooking,
Uh-huh.
where you can really screw up a dish with very minimal effort. I'm not a
Yeah.
good cook. Like that's not my jam, but I know you can mess things up pretty quickly. Cosmetic chemistry, there's so many nuances to cosmetic
Yeah.
chemistry, and you can really screw up. I always say, did I bust the base? Which is when you have put an active in it and it just basically turns to water and it's liquefied and it's lost its like extra, like I busted the base. So, and I'm like pushing it, and you're just throwing away a lot of stuff. So, but that's where the trial and error comes in, where you're just trying, like, I'm going to get this through. I'm going to push it. I'm going to
Right.
push it. I'm going to push it. So I love that you did that in 48 hours. So talk to me. So now thinking back in your 18 plus years,
Mhm.
what are some things where you feel like you actually got some really great traction? Like if you're, so talking to a new esthetician today, what's the biggest advice you give somebody that's just coming out of school and they're like, Jess, you've been doing this. I want to be like you. What advice would you give that new person?
So actually, the very first piece of advice, because I've hired all of my gals right out of school,
Mm,
is take care of your body, set
mm,
boundaries.
mm.
Like our first lessons in waxing and anything, I have them stand there and hold the stick, and I'm like, does that even feel good? Nope. I'm like, if you
Yes.
don't take care of your body, and if you don't learn how to do that properly, and know that you have to get enough sleep and drink enough water and do those things,
Mhm.
because I know that all of our industry has been like, oh, I just live on coffee and work 20 hours a day. No, like that's terrible. And if you want to be in
Mhm.
this for longevity, please, please, please take care of your body. Stand
Yes.
correctly, get chairs that work. If you are standing on concrete, change your shoes every 6 months, stand on memory foam, do whatever
Yep.
it takes so that your body is taken care of. Put people in positions that are comfortable for them, but also work for you. Like make sure that you are your priority because you are your business. And like you said, your hands, most important thing. And if you hurt your
Yes.
wrist because you're like, well, this is more comfortable for the client, you're
Right.
doing
Right.
30 of those a day and they're doing one. They're sitting for one.
Right.
Like,
Right.
honestly, put yourself first
Yes.
because
Yes.
you are the business. And if you're not taking care of you, you can't work.
Which I mean is huge. So again, something else not being taught in aesthetic school is
Yeah.
ergonomics. Like we talk a lot about when you're doing extractions. I'm like, you're going to be doing a lot of extractions. So paying attention to your wrist placement
Yes.
so that you're not injuring yourself. You're not trying to go so hard that you're actually injuring because you're going to do it 10 plus times a day.
Yep.
Like everyone take care of your bodies. I have had the conversation with an esthetician on the East Coast about 2 weeks ago, and she was upset because her back was hurting,
Mm-hmm.
and she bought a really what she thought was going to be it was a really big table, and she's small, and for her to
Mm-hmm.
reaching and the bad ergonomics, and I'm like, go to yoga. Like, okay, like I'm like, you got to take care of yourself. Like you can't, if your back is hurting now because you can't reach the other side of that table, it's not the right table for you. But you got
Right.
to take care of your body because this is the most important thing. And you're not going to want to be doing anything in aesthetics if you're in pain.
Right. And you
No,
can't. You
no.
physically can't do anything.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. I love that. I love that advice. So now tell me, because you're obviously doing a lot of Brazilians and you're seeing all this, what is something that you've seen from a client, a DIY situation that you've seen, or a trend or something that you're like, what are you doing? And why are you doing that? What have you been exposed to that you're like, why are you doing that?
Um, honestly, I I always tell people they're like, "You're really good at waxing." I said, "After 18 years, I better be good at it because it's a skill." I said, "But
Yes.
my
Yes.
actual gift is that I can talk to anybody about anything, and so they don't actually know what's going on. Like while I'm waxing them,
Yep.
I think the biggest thing is, though I think in our industry, explaining to people what we're doing is important. I don't know that people need to know that you're putting wax where you're putting it so that they overthink it and, oh my God, this is going to hurt. Instead, I'm like, oh, so tell me about your kids. So tell me about your job. You know,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of what I see, luckily, I don't see a lot of crazy stuff because we are a smaller town and I'm going
Yeah.
to run into you at the grocery store. I mean, that's the reality of it. I'm going to
It's
probably
totally
run into
true.
10 people a day I know.
Small town. I love it. I won't say her name because she'll get embarrassed, but I remember when laser hair removal came out, she left the valley to go to San Diego to get laser hair removal
Mhm.
because we is very small back then too,
Yeah.
like tiny. She's like, I don't need to run into her at the grocery store, like, and she's waxing my parts and laser hair
I
removal.
have clients who drive like 3 or 4 hours to come get waxed because they don't want to go because their town is so little. I mean, ours is like 50 some thousand, 50 to 60,000, but
Yeah.
their towns are so little. They're like, nope, not let. I went to high school with that girl.
It's such a well, and everybody's got a different comfort level. Some people are not
Yep.
modest and they're just like, whatever, like go
Yep.
for it. It's but that you having that skill set to be able to talk to a client and have a conversation with them to get their mind off of something.
Yep.
So they're not, the chiropractor, the one, but they crack your neck on number two
Right.
because you're waiting for number three to tense up.
Right.
That's a skill, right? Having that conversation, just making somebody comfortable and easy. And then they're like, oh, my waxing appointment's over. I didn't even have to think about it. I got out of my head.
Right.
Having a therapy conversation, which some of those conversations you're like, okay, well, I should get paid as a therapist sometimes.
Right. But I think that's what's also lacking. Like you said, people have a hard time talking to people about what they do. And then even in the room, because I read through all these posts and, all these estheticians, and they're like, how do you make small talk? I'm like, maybe that's a skill we need to practice then, because if you can't bring someone in and they feel like you're kind of shut down and you're not like, hey, how are you? What's going on here? Because I've sold skincare for years and I haven't done facials for 17 years. And I sell a ton of skincare. And I always get asked
Mhm.
how I do it. Because I'm like, but I look at them and go, what's going on here? Tell me what's happening. What are you eating? What's happening while I'm waxing them?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they need, we need to work on the skill of talking to people about them
Hmm.
and learning how to have, and it doesn't have to be small talk. That's where I think the other part is. Everyone goes, oh, I need small talk. You can only talk about the weather so much. Like,
Right.
ask
Let's talk
people
about some
things.
real
People
things.
want
Yeah.
to share. What's going on in your life? What do you do for a living? Tell me about your job. Tell me about your
Yeah.
kids. You know,
Yes. Yes. I
just
love it. So again, amazing. I love everything you just said. See, we could literally talk for hours and hours because you understand the industry, and the thing that I want people to take away with every time they listen to one of these episodes is that there's something that whoever we're talking to is doing right. They've done something right in their business. To be 18 plus years in your business, you have to be doing something right to do that.
yeah,
And look at the other mistakes that people have made along the way. The Marias that invested all this money in modalities with no clients, trying to go solo, to have to fail, right before going into a pandemic. Like there are best, and I know this is like one of the estheticians I'm getting ready to interview on Friday is 21 years old. And so I'm like, she grew up with a cell phone. She grew up with Facebook. She grew up with all of
yeah,
these things that we didn't have as an industry from back in the day.
right,
And just her perspective, I can't wait to talk to her because I was 22 years old when I got into the industry.
right,
So, and before cell phones, computers, we had voicemail. We called 1-800, to like check in with our
right.
people. Like that's just what we did back then. So to see it now, I'm very interested to hear her perspective. And I think that the goal for this is for people to be able to take things away and like learn all of that. So it's so awesome, Jess. Thank you so much. So
Yes.
tell me, where can they find you? What's your Instagram, your website? Like where can they buy your journal? Where's the fun stuff?
So, if they want to follow the Body Bar, just see what we're posting there. It's the Body Bar 307 on Instagram and Facebook, because we are a very Facebook community still here.
Yes.
And on Instagram, for me personally, it's Jessica Lewan _ and you can, in my LinkedIn is my, you can link to my journal. It's on Amazon, but you can link straight from my link tree there on Amazon or Facebook. And yeah.
You have your on Body Bar 307 in your link tree, you have a link to where somebody could actually go straight to Amazon to buy your book,
In my
to buy the
personal
journal
one. I don't have it
in
on the
your
Body Bar
personal.
one yet. I'm
Okay.
debating on that one, but right now on the Body Bar, if they just wanted to see what we're doing to market and different things, they can pop
Okay.
over there. But on my personal one is where I share all my coaching.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. 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 So we're going to leave with this. So your most popular the service that you do the most of, like, what is your number one service right now in your business?
Brazilian waxing. That's what we're known
Brazilian
for.
waxing.
Yeah, I will tell you, I've done before I hired, I was doing 100 to 150 a week.
Wow, you were
I'm known for
busy.
my like 7-minute Brazilians. I can get people, I book appointments at 15 minutes. You are in, out, checked out, rebooked, gone.
I love
Mm.
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, is there anything that you'd like to leave the listener with that we didn't talk about? Touch base?
I think we talked about a lot. I think the biggest thing is learn how to talk to people and take care of your body.
Take care. Well, that's actually a big, you know what, I'm going to start putting that into my dose of like, this is what you need to focus on. Cause I
Yeah.
really, if people don't have any clientele, that's usually grassroots. Like, where am I going to start?
Yep.
And not everybody has unique personalities. And I don't want to ever, the way that I approach something, I'm 6'4". So when I walk into a room, I get a different response from somebody that's 5'2" or 5'3". Like, it just is immediately different. So how I approach introducing myself to a situation is going to be very unique and different based on my personality. And I want people's I want them to go with their strengths.
Yep.
And if you don't have that strength, it's something you have to learn and you have to practice. This is a people centric, you're working on people, human beings. So if you're not comfortable talking to them, that's got to be a place where that's one of your goals that you would put in your journal. Like, I'm going to talk to 3 new clients this week, or like just something that you can say, I'm going to focus on this. This is going to be my goal for the week. And then next month, I'm going to talk to 5 new people. Like, it's okay. So taking care of your body, learning how to communicate with your clients really is, I think, a huge important. Introducing yourself to people, and like, don't invest money in anything until you have the basics. You can do a lot. I talk about acne facials. Like, you don't even need a steamer in most cases. If you have one, okay, great. But if you don't have one, we can teach you how to do the most amazing acne facial with just your hands. That's all you need. I mean, if you have an extraction tool, great, but it's not necessary to get yourself started. So that's awesome. Okay,
People
so
come to you for your personality. They connect with you
they
because they love
do.
you and they trust you.
Yes,
Oh,
yes. I love it. So, Jessica, thank you so much.
okay.
So, thank you guys for listening to this episode of I Wish Podcast. This episode's been brought to you by wishskinhealth.com. We are an acne focused brand. If you are interested in treating acne, learning anything about acne, you can visit us at trywish.com. That's TRYWISH.com. And again, thank you for spending your time with us today. We look forward to chatting soon.